Welcome. I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about conflict management, integrating religious beliefs in scholarly arguments. This is a webinar that looks at a particular set of requirements, how to write about religious beliefs, about the sources, or scriptures in this case, underlying those beliefs, and to use secular scholarship, and how to put these all together in an argument. So we're going to be looking at this through the lens of a specific assignment that happens to be in the conflict management program, but the general principles are applicable in any course at ACU that requires that you be writing this sort of multi-layered argument. A little bit about the Writing Center. If you're not otherwise familiar with us, we work with students in just about every online program at ACU. We do not charge for our services. We are able to work with you through a variety of means around a wide range of schedules. We work through students through things like this webinar here, through offering and maintaining a course paper template, a website with sample papers, with explanations of different topics, with examples, as well as a complete catalog of these webinars. And we also work with students through one-on-one appointments. These appointments come in two types. First is you can schedule an asynchronous appointment. What does asynchronous mean? That means that you are able to schedule time. By the time that rolls around, you want to upload a draft of your paper and any special requests. We look at it, we send you feedback, generally within 24 hours. Now, if it happens that you schedule your appointment for 11 p.m. and you want to send in your draft before you head off to bed, that's totally okay. Our folks will look at it and send you feedback. Now, if you'd rather that you have the ability to ask questions back and forth, perhaps to do follow-up questions on a particular topic you're struggling to understand, or you just want to see how do you do that thing in Word, then you might be interested in the second type, which would be a real-time appointment. You can either schedule that for phone or Zoom. Some students prefer to do phone because it helps them focus on the text. Others prefer to use Zoom because that way they can look at the text as it appears in Word. And it's really a question of what works best for what your needs are. All right, now we have many new webinars that we offer every term, as well as a few classics that come around. But regardless of whether it's an old webinar or a new one, after we've offered it, we will upload the recording to the Writing Center website so you can view it. And so you don't need to worry about making sure that you can attend the whole thing. If you need to leave it, if you can always watch the rest on a recording. Just one thing I want to point out on our webinar page. We do have a lot of webinars, and so if you scroll down, you'll see this tabbed view, which allows you to look at the webinars associated with particular courses in different programs. So if I clicked on the CONR tab, it would show me all the CONR classes that we currently have webinars with direct tie-ins, and they'll be listed out with labeled by the assignments. If you're wondering, okay, I'm in CONR 610, do you have anything about the week 5 assignment? You can go right there and check. We update that as the term goes to make sure it stays current. You'll see me referring to our APA course paper template later that does a lot of the formatting for you and helps you speed things up. We also post our videos to our YouTube channel for easy consumption on the go and without having to log into ACU, and we have a blog where we explore various topics. All right, with that, let's look at our main focus today. We have 3 learning objectives. The first will be to explore how to cite and discuss religious, secular, and personal sources. From that, we're going to look at a specific assignment in CONR 610, the Week 3, Assignment 3, Power and the Climate of Conflict. And then we're going to finish with a hands-on demonstration of how to take the instructions and start the outlining drafting process and to apply the basic principles of citing and discussing these different types of sources. All right, so let's look at the question of how to use these different types of information. In an AP style, there are 2 related but different ways that you attribute information. One is through your references list, where you have this whole section at the back of every paper that has a guide for locating a particular source of information. And it's all that information is put at the end so it doesn't distract in the process of reading and the body of your paper, so you can focus on the argument, and that it is very helpful in that it lets you focus in the here and now on the, okay, here's what's being said, and then if you want more information, you check the citation, look at the keyed reference, and then go from there. And so we refer to the pieces of information in the reference section as reference entries. Now, citations are these shorthand ways of referring to the things in the reference list. And those citations will generally contain 2 or 3 pieces of information. The author or authors, which is to say who wrote the source, the date, meaning in this case the year that it was published, and then if you are doing a direct quotation, if you are quoting the text exactly from the source, then you need to give either the page number, if it's something that has page numbers, paragraph number, if it's something in text that doesn't, or if it's a video or sound thing, a timestamp indicating, okay, here's exactly where you go to find this text. Now, for those reference entries, it's, again, starting with who wrote it and when was it published. So this is the information that's provided in the citations, and this is how you find your sources in the reference entry. Next up, what it's called, which is to say, what is the title of the specific work? How do you find it, whether that's, order from this publisher, or go to this website, or something else like that. For example, book with one author, Watson, J, so that's the last name. The first name gets reduced to an initial. For the publication year, that's 2011. Nursing is the title of the text. And how do you find it? Well, you can order it from the University Press in Colorado. If you have 2 authors, that's fine. Just notice that we separate the first and second authors with a comma and an ampersand. And if it's a journal article, we have a little bit different information, but the same basic idea. So if we look here, you'll see that we have the title of the journal article itself. That's this information here. The East China Sea Dispute, Context, Claims, Issues, and Possible Solutions. And then we also have the title of the journal itself, which is Asian Perspective. 31 here is the volume number, 1 is the issue number, and this is the page range. So all of this information collectively provides you a way of finding the exact article. Now, if it's a video, let's take a YouTube video as an example, then we need a little bit more information. We need to know who wrote it. In this case, you put the name of the channel, in this case, Jeremy Johns. The date, in this case, because videos can be posted on multiple days and it shows you that information, we get the year, the month, and the day of the month. And there's the title, that square brackets note that it's a video, the publishing platform, it's YouTube, and then a link to it. So, now if you're citing, again, author and date are basic pieces of information. Who wrote or presented it? That's the author. When was it published? In this case, the year. And then, if you are doing a quotation again, we need to indicate how to find that exact quotation. And you can see here some examples of how to quote, how to include the citations for that. And you'll see that the timestamps in the bottom line indicate, oh, this is found between seconds 3 and second 4 in that video, and then the other one indicates, oh, at 1 minute 8 seconds. Now, if you are working with the Bible, there's some extra information. Now, they've actually changed this so this follows the same rules as other sources as far as what's being cited and referenced. But since this is a change from APA 6, I thought it would be good to spend a little time on this. So, first off, if you're just referring to a chapter and verse in the Bible, you can just say that. In Genesis 1:20 to 22, and then describe that. That's fine. We include a parenthetical citation that just says Genesis 1, 20 to 22. But if you're quoting, you now need to include several pieces of information that weren't required in APA 6 edition. First, wrap the quote in quotation marks. No change there. Second, include the italicized title of the translation, in this case, King James Bible, and then include the original publication year, if known, so 1769 in this case, and the publication year for this specific source that you're using, in which case this is 2017 in reprint of the Bible, or rather transfer of the text online, which functionally counts as a reprint. Then we also need to have a references entry. Okay, now this is something that APA 6 did not require unless you were, say, quoting the introduction, but in APA 7 you do need to include that. Because there isn't a list of authors ascribed to this, then we just have the title, King James Bible, in italics. That's why it's italicized, actually, in the second bullet. So the title of the work, King James Bible, the publication year, 2017. How do you find it? Oh, on the website King James Bible Online, link for that. And then that parenthetical note, original work published 1769. All right. Now, what about personal beliefs? Well, this is something where some people have some resistance because of how they were taught before how to write, quote-unquote, scholarly. But in APA 7, there's an acknowledgement that sometimes the best, most efficient way of identifying what you're discussing is just say, I believe this. I believe that. I define this as something. Or my personal belief is whatever it should be. And so if it is clarifying who did what, where the source of this information is from, by all means use these personal pronouns. There are ways where you can set things up so that you introduce that you're describing your personal belief, and then you, since you've done that in the very first sentence of the paragraph, you don't need to then say I this, I that, for every sentence thereafter. That would be repetitive. So long as you're clarifying, you can certainly use these personal pronouns. With that, let's look at the specific assignment. So this is for CONR's 610's Week 3 assignment, Powering the Climate of Conflict. And this is coming out of the Managing Conflict in the Workplace course. So it starts out with a list of things to write about. Discuss the following topics based on the assigned readings. Okay, what is the climate of conflict and how does it impact conflict interactions? Reflect on the climate of conflict in terms of what parties can do to change a climate and how parties can create a constructive workplace climate. What is FACE and how can FACE giving contribute to a constructive conflict climate? What is power and why is the balance of power among parties important? So this is really, all right, show us that you have done the readings by summarizing the key principles and synthesizing them together. And then there are some additional prompts. So in light of biblical quotation from Philippians and 2:1-11, answer these questions. How does or should Jesus' example of shared power impact the Christian's use of power in conflict situations? And then, how can followers of Christ live out their faith in the workplace in the ways that they steward power? And there's a note here to not only cite the course text, but also include other scriptural references that illustrate your view of how Christians should show the mind of Christ in conflict. And if we look at the specs here, we see, okay, cover page with name, course number, assignment title, all that's standard so far. Word count. Okay, that is what we call a house rule. It's something that APA style doesn't say do this, but your professor's saying do it. Like, you're in my house, please follow my rules. Okay, so it's one thing to include. And then the date, again, just normally included. Alright, should be around 1800 to 2000 words, which will work out to be about 7 to 8 pages of content, not counting the cover page, heading, quotes, or any references. So to exclude the title page, exclude the references page, it's the pages between those that we're counting here. And a note to include a subheading for each rubric line. Okay? Now, we talked about quoting, and here we have something here where, while you can certainly include quotes when you are writing a regular paper, there's a specific instruction for this assignment that you should not be quoting in sources. So if you are referring to a biblical passage, you want to be paraphrasing that or summarizing it. All right, so besides that standard APA stuff, paraphrase, cite, and reference using APA format, all right, yeah. Double-spaced paper, 12-point Times New Roman font. Now, if you use our AP course paper template, much of that will be done for you by default. So we'll make sure to look at that in a little bit. Let's continue. All right, so if we look at the rubric here, you'll find that it basically lists, all right, everything that was described in the instructions, there are points described to it, so please follow all the instructions. But if you're wondering where the body of the paper is, where you should be spending most of your time writing, take a look at that last column. So there's a little bit of points that go to the introduction and the conclusion, but the vast majority is for identifying, for answering the prompts. And you'll see that there is kind of a introduction and then application interchange. So the climate of conflict and its impact on conflict interactions, okay, that's more summarizing, presenting that you've done the reading. And then, opportunities for changing the climate of conflict. That's, you're expanding, you're applying it, saying, okay, and here's how this matters, this is what we should do, this is what we should be focused on. And you'll see that there is something of that going on in alternation, where you have shorter things, and then, okay, let's go big with that in the next one, which gets more points, and therefore you should spend a little bit more time on that. Looking at this, we have 6 main sections here, plus the introduction and conclusion. So of those 6 interior ones that correspond to different parts of the prompt, you'll see that that will work out to somewhere around like 2 or 3 paragraphs each. If a paragraph is normally 5 to 7 sentences when writing at this level. So that'll give you a rough idea. So the ones that are 10 points, probably around 2 paragraphs, may occasionally be a little longer. And the ones that are 15 points, probably around 3 full paragraphs. Can also be a little bit longer, but you still want to come in that 7 to 8 page target, because that'll get you around the 1,800 to 2,000 words that you're being asked to do. All right, with that taken care of, let's go ahead and grab a copy of the APA course paper template. You can download using this link here. Now, when you first download the template, there will be various comments here that refer you to how-to videos and other things like that. We're going to just go ahead and quickly delete all of those. Delete all comments in document, and then you can fill in the different placeholders here. Now, if we go back to the list of requirements for this, we'll recall that the word count is required. There's no instruction on where exactly to put that, so let's put it here. But let's make life helpful for us and give us a visual reminder that, yes, there is supposed to be something that goes in here so you don't accidentally submit this assignment without that piece of information included in those points. So I'm going to go ahead and also add a comment here saying, so there's a double visual reminder to take care of that. And again, go ahead and fill this in. Now, this particular paper does not require an abstract, so we'll delete that. And then the title of the paper should be going right up here. There's a bunch of placeholders to show how the different styles work. I will take those out right now. And same thing with the placeholder references. Now, first thing I recommend doing, and for most assignments, if you start by copy and pasting the assignment instructions into your document, that will give you a roadmap of how you are being asked to lay things out. And even better, it will give you the same roadmap that your professors will use when they grade your assignments, because they're looking for things in a particular logical order, which the assignment happens to give you. So if you write following the rubric in that same order, it will be very, very easy for them to say, oh, yes, they did that, full credit. They did that, full credit, etc. All right. So I've gone ahead and copy and pasted the assignment instructions here. And one of the first things I'm going to do after that is to cross out anything that is not needed as far as my outline is concerned. So discuss these things based on the readings. Yeah, I got that. Here, this part here, saying to cite the text and the scriptures, I'm going to make that a sub-bullet here because it can serve as a reminder to do this specifically for this. But as far as starting this out, all right. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to bold all of these. I'm going to italicize these. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adding the headings that should go with that. And I'm looking at this and saying, okay, this is really about climate conflict. All right. All right, so I want to make a heading for that. So if I open the Styles pane here, I'm on the home part of it, open up the Styles pane, and I select APA Level 1. You'll see that that immediately gets centered and bolded just from applying that style. Now, if you are looking back at the rubric, you might be asking, well, why isn't there something for the introduction? And that is because in APA style, there's actually a rule saying, do not start your paper, do not start a section with a heading called introduction, because that would be redundant. We know it's the introduction because it's the starting part there. So in our case, we don't have an introduction, but that is a good reminder to have a section where you have that. And we'll make that a bullet here. Alright, now all the others, and indeed conclusion at the end, should be there, but just not a heading for introduction. So, knowing that, I can go ahead and apply that style, and I can look at each of these and say, okay, I know I need something for that. I'm going to have faith in the workplace, and if I select that and hit AP Level 1, it turns into that heading. And these aren't the only wordings that you could use, but I'm using the prompt text here as a model, so it's very clear, oh, yes, this is that section that is doing that thing. Alright, so we now have our introduction, space to put that in. This is where you'll put, among other things, a brief introduction to the paper, that including a list of all the major sections, which, as it happens, you've got the headings there as a handy reference as you write out that roadmap in sentence form. All right, so what happens next? Well, you want to develop this outline, and keeping in mind that there are 3 different general types of sources that you can be using here. There is the Bible. There's anything secular that's published, that including the course readings. Secular in this case just meaning the opposite of sacred, or not sacred, not like unholy, but not in contrast. Not meaning like bad, hellacious, but not being, in this case, biblical scriptures as a source. So we have those 3 things, and as you are filling this in, okay, according to author, now, to help track what is the notes to myself versus what's the original prompt, I'm going to have those things not be italicized. Now, these are examples of how you might start discussing information from any of those different types. So if this was according to the letter to the Philippians, then we might say, okay, according to the Apostle Paul, Philippians 2, 3 to 5. And check the spelling there and find, oh, yes, that is supposed to be 2 P's in the middle, not 2 L's. Okay, Philippians 2, 3 to 5, Christian should, and then... Now, what is the goal here? It's not just to summarize, but to synthesize, to put this together and see, okay, what does this mean when put together? And that should be especially present in this section when you are reflecting on the climate of conflict, because this is your opportunity to not only say, here's what the literature says, well, here are the Christian principles that either you may want to guide or someone you're working with may want to guide, and then here's how this all lines up or doesn't line up with your personal beliefs. And what you do if everything's in alignment, okay, your course of action is probably more clear. If something is in conflict or if there's some tension there, write about that. Let us know. Now, again, going back to the particular instructions for this assignment, because this specifies not to be quoting, then we should be summarizing or paraphrasing that and then having a parenthetical citation like this one that you see here. All right, so looking at this here, one thing that's helpful to do in going through the reading is to think about where you'll find supporting examples. And we're talking about Jesus sharing power. You can look at some of the course reading, or you can just go right to the Gospels, which are our most direct account of what Jesus did and therefore Jesus' examples. So as you go through this and say, okay, well, here's where Jesus empowered the disciples and sent them 2 by 2 to go out into Judea, for example, and then ground that with a citation to the Bible. Make sure that you put in a reference for the Bible in your references section, and keep going from there. If you list out some of these in advance, saying, okay, I need a couple examples, then you can say, all right, as I do my reading, I want to be on the lookout for example number 1, example number 2, and then just fill that in as you go. So by starting out by creating the outline, you can generate a list of what you're looking for. And don't just list the examples. So you can start figuring out what is going to go into that section. And when you have this general list in hand as you do the reading, thoughts will come to you that you can go ahead and add to this outline. So that's all the time we have for today. So let's just do a recap of what we talked about. So we talked about how to cite and discuss 3 different types of sources: religious, secular, and personal, meaning writing about yourself and your beliefs. We looked at the specific assignment from CONR 610, Assignment 3, Power in the Climate of Conflict, and we talked about how to take those instructions to interpret them to get rough ideas of how long each section should be, how much to go into each topic, and then how to take the instructions and use that to begin the outlining and drafting process. To send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, and whether you are coming to see us in an appointment or just checking out our website or coming to a webinar like this, we're happy to have you here. Feel free to come and give us a holler if you'd like some help. Have a good evening.